When I joined the university, I deliberately took economics, thinking that is a subject through which I can do lots for my country. But in around 15-20 years time, I learned that the economics we learned did not help me answer the questions, and I worked more in a broad sense which I defined as social sciences. So most of my work in later life was in that area. I think I must also tell you why I was in Delhi. I worked for about 3 years in the government of Kerala, which made me understand what a government office is. I left it, came to Delhi, and worked with the Indian Statistical Institute, which at that time was very, very important for planning in India. There also I had lots of problems, but I stuck to it mainly because first I didn't believe in jumping from place to place. I did not know how to do it, but still I survived. And I think a large part of my work about which I am quite happy were done there. But I think I must also add, I have been writing on women for about more than 50 years. But definitely not as women's studies or anything like that. And in 99, I got about 20 articles written over a span of 50 years, selected them and published as a book. Because I felt a bit bad that though I have written more than half a dozen books in English, I didn't have a book in Malayalam. But let me also add, one new journal reviewed it so badly with the cover page and my photograph, everything in it. And with a lot of malice and lot of very bad, I was a bit hurt. I discussed with the two other friends whether I should reply or I should ask someone, a neutral person to reply. But the concerns were don't do anything, mainly because the person who reviewed did not give his or her name in it. And unfortunately, this journal, which is quite reputed in Kerala, had the very bad ethics of publishing one like that. But recently, I got a postcard, very nice, very beautiful letter from the head of the Malayalam department in Kozhikode University, Mr. Bashir, telling me how good it is to have people like me, and it is only your Atma-bala, how it is strength of your soul, you have lived, and we want people like you. So I think one lives with ups and downs in life, and that's what we are hearing all these days. But I must add a word of thanks not only to ASR and all the friends here, but to the people of Lahore, whom I haven't met in large numbers. But let me add one simple thing. When we went to the food street, most of you and all of you most probably paid for the food we ate, whereas I was treated by 3 young men sitting at last. In fact, I just looked what they were eating. So they insisted I should eat a tender parota kind of thing. But they ordered one more and gave it to me. With the result, I don't know whether the stomach upset was, it was too late. So that was not the reason for this. But after listening to all these days, I really do not know what to say. I have so many things to say and it's not knowing what to do. Originally, when I was allowed to come here, I must use the word allowed because it was my asking whether I got this invitation about which I am extremely happy. I thought I'll talk about matrimony in Kerala because that's a book I recently wrote and about matrimony here. And also, there is a sizable section of Muslims in Kerala who are also practicing matrimony and who think they have till now not got all the legislations passed against the Hindu communities who are practicing that. Anyhow, today I have my book. I have given a copy to the institute, and anybody interested can see it later on. Then I thought I will talk on education and gender inequality in Kerala. That also is not the topic I am talking. But after hearing especially the morning's presentation, I thought even under apparent or admittedly claimed by lots of people, peaceful conditions, many things discussed in the earlier sessions can happen. When I say these things, I know many persons here have heard about Kerala, its positive indicators in many fronts, which has been lauded as the model for the developing world, etc., etc. And so you may have your doubts. I am sure many questions will come. As a result, I have definitely to touch upon Kerala also. And though this topic is not there, I think I have briefly to touch again on women's studies in India also. Actually, on the first day, Uma said that there is something called women's studies movement. Actually, I didn't understand that at all. And women's studies movement, women's studies itself was not here and there one study nowadays, but when it started, it was certainly started as a sponsored program of the Indian Council of Social Science Research, which is fully financed by the government of India. So that means it was a sponsored topic of the government itself. And if you look at the number of women's studies, if you take the reports, books, articles, and whatnot, whereas in size, in numbers, we are very, very high, really, very, very. But they would be good, bad, and indifferent and insipid studies. And I think, including Uma, many people will be evaluating the proposals that come. And I am sure she would have told the ICS or other agencies, hereafter don't send them to me. And again, unfortunately, though the good studies are really good studies, I am willing to admit to myself, we have not succeeded in reaching out to people at large or to send direct, strong messages so that certain things, because our contribution can be making the women more visible, though there were lots and lots of female-headed households earlier also, we emphatically emphasize there are female-headed households, but still, they are being used by people like us or even taken by the government of India and its agencies and all the funding agencies. But still, they have not become part and parcel of the society's thinking, which alone can make direct changes. Now, coming to the topic given to me, women's movement. Again, I am not interested in charting whether there is a women's movement, whether the NGOs make a movement, etc., etc. I think some of the women's organizations in India, like the All India Congress Party, the Anti-Vedic Communist Party, the present Communist Party, Marxist, and BJP, all have very strong, some of them are old, very old, some of them very new, BJP for example, but they have strong women's component. They will not admit that they are women's wings of the respective parties, but they function under that and they function within their directions and rules. Once in a way they may come outside and say certain things, but otherwise these women's groups, though in large numbers, others are all relatively small, new NGO organizations, many of them funded by big funding agencies. Especially now, one of the biggest funding agencies to me is the MacArthur Foundation, which sets it that there was a time when we in India said no funding with strings attached. We were very clear with that. But we have forgotten the word strings altogether. We want only the funds and the topics and what you should work on and the way in which you work on are all given along with that. Just like you will get a fax machine, you will get email facilities, there is a packet coming along with which definitely the topics and the manner in which it should be conducted also. But then we have forgotten not only the strings, we have even forgotten to see these things through. As I said earlier, I'll briefly touch upon Kerala because many of you are curious about Kerala. But still, it is not only, many of you ask me about the literacy rate and thinking that high literacy rate means high evolved societies. But not only literacy, even sex ratio, for example. Women per 1,000 men. Kerala is the only state, according to the census, which has had a favorable sex ratio from 1901 till now. But now there is a debate going on whether it is continuing to be so in the present census, which has just now taken place. And again, education. See, in my times, when I was a schoolgirl, one had to walk at least 2 miles to go to a good school. But I think in the last 30-40 years, schools have come practically to every house. Most of the children, except in tiny pockets of village people or some tribals, girls and boys could walk over to the nearest school and come home with lunch. That facility came. But let me also add, during the same period, many elite schools which were not there in our times have also come out. And the family planning program, which again is a great success story in Kerala, which has produced 1 or 2 children, 1 boy or 1 girl, and the parents having, and the successive years of pay commission and all kinds of things have given lots and lots of income to the sizable section of the middle class who can send the children to very high cost schools, etc., have enabled a new class of people coming up, new ideas coming up, and what I am afraid of is that, and also, it is in government records, many schools are on the verge of closure. They use the word uneconomic schools. What is uneconomic school? The schools which cannot afford the teacher to pay, the government has to pay the teacher because the number of children are going down. These developments, and I feel that it is from the elite schools that tomorrow's bureaucrats and academics and politicians and everybody is to come out. And their value system which is inculcated in these schools is very different from any of us do. So when we talk about schools, now if you as an outsider see these number of children per school, number of schools, number of colleges, number of engineering colleges, you will be highly impressed. But what is the reality behind all these schools? Again coming to but when we are in family planning also, again there are, because irrespective of rural urban background, educated or not, practically every woman has access to family planning, and most of the poor people, poor women, for example, vendors and many poor people, they all tell you, we want smaller number of children, we want to give a slightly better life to our children. But most probably, this is to me one difference which the Kerala is showing to maybe the poor in Madhya Pradesh or Orissa or Bihar will not be in that position to say this thing because their level of poverty is so much because of the literacy, again what you are all knowing, and also the political developments in Kerala. Even the poor in Kerala have reached a stage when they can aspire for a better life for the children. But let me add, none of us who are studying, women who are studying social society, have not gone to find out how many of the women have realized these dreams of theirs. I have not come across many women who can, among these class that despite because their children are dropouts, their children are malnourished, their children are going wayward and creating lots of worries and pain to the parents and family also. But I did a paper just before I came for another conference on education and employment, education development, but there again, from primary school up to the postgraduate, MSc, MA level, it is a girls' number which is higher. All of us thought that after B.Ed, perhaps it will be the boys who. It is not so. From the smallest level up to the highest level in the universities, not the professional college. The professional college also girls' numbers are very high, but it is not more than the boys. But I think many people here and many people in many parts of the world think in mathematics and science it is the boys who do better and girls on the whole don't. You are this familiar with this. But I found in my data, it is not after any particular study, but the data collected from the government study itself shows that even for mathematics and science subjects, it is the girls' numbers which are high at all levels. But does this give them more autonomy? Does this give them this kind of entry into colleges and staying power in the colleges, etc.? Mainly because the education system is very cheap in our universities and colleges even now. And employment, for example. You see, I know women in Kerala who have been employed for the last 100 years or more. In fact, I will a woman to whom I go and talk regularly is she just completed 9 years. And I think and the women's college in Trivandrum was there for more than 100 years. So that means, women going to Kerala is not a new thing. But despite all these things, when it comes to environment, it falls so short of the men's level. That is something which was very intriguing. Why is it? How is it happening? Partly, apart from the opportunities created are very limited, and other factors, I feel the importance of marriage and family. You see, in no home, girls and boys are given classes or they don't have a seminar. But unspoken messages are given to boys and girls, and the unspoken message given to Kerala girls is definitely that your life depends upon marriage and family life, which is great. But what surprises me is that new words and new expressions which I did not hear when I was growing up are coming up. For example, if a parent come to invite me for the daughter's marriage and I know that she is studying for medicine, and if I ask them what will she do, they will immediately reply me, they will decide. And who is they? They are the man whom she might not know or his people whom again she does not know at all. And similarly, I can give so many examples of the change in language, change in usage essentially. Not yet, I want to add to that because I think we have not talked at all or very touchingly on the globalization. Globalization and marketization, liberalization and whatnot. What is the other session? Which are very much known to us. We hear it and use it without any inhibition in our country. But I don't think most of us know the details of it. I want the women's movement or concerned women to think a little more about it, at least from our countries. It's very important because of what Rohini and Meena Adharya raised some points, and to which I am very, very closely related because Meena said the import of textiles from India is creating a lot of problems for Nepal. And Rohini said something else from India. But then what happens to our country? You see, the opening up to the market and for example, in a country which produces lots of apple, in Trivandrum for example, Trivandrum does not have any apples. It used to come from Himachal Pradesh and we were quite happy with it. This time, all the vendors on the roadside, they were telling me this imported from Australia. Then I said, I don't want that thing. I want only Desi apple. I am not buying it from you. But similarly, whatever we are producing, and the coconut import, is that coconut is the import? I think my state, Kerala state's name comes from coconut, and that not only the import of copra and oil from outside to Kerala, even rubber. It is a state which for various reasons have reduced the area under paddy lands, basic food of Kerala. But at least the other cash crops were thriving and we were able to make, at least some people were living on them. But now the present import system, the government of India's policies are harming all our countries, and I think at least for the SAARC regions, we have to examine the WTO and other related things in this context. And I have a suggestion that women, not all the women here, we have to take the initiative in studying the WTO context, the rules and how it affects our women. Because when textiles go there, it is certainly not the handlooms of India which is going to that place. But the handlooms of India are disappearing. In the whole process, one can also add. Similarly, the skill and knowledge which women have inherited and passed on from generation to generation in case of not only handlooms and crafts, but in Medicare, many things have disappeared, and these also are being kept in account. And to fight these things, I feel we didn't use the word Tina factor here at all. There was no alternative. I think all these come to us with the basic understanding that there is no alternative except what is told to us by the globalization. And we do not know what the globalization is, because when East India Company came, we knew we didn't know he was the enemy, but at least here and there were protests, there were Even with bows and arrows, people try to stop them coming. But globalization, who is globalization, what is globalization, not known to us. And we to a large extent try not to do the thing, but I have a feeling in many parts of the world, including France and America, USA and many countries, there are groups of people opposing this present trend, and it is in our own interest to see this. And another thing closely related to is that we have to see globalization ultimately means there will be not only one world, but I think one face in the world. Everything will be disappeared, all the divergencies of the world, diversities of the world. I think it is beautiful, it is enriching, it is in a way necessary for a vibrant democracy and a harmonious human relationship to have diversities which are respected by everybody. And that also have to be kept in, because it's so nice to have people speaking different languages, eating different food, wearing different dresses, and singing different songs, coming together and enjoying these things. Instead of erasing all these things and one song and one language and one food and things like that. I think I am for diversity, I am for that. It is so good to have different flowers in the world. I also want to add that distancing need not be on the basis of partition and Talibanization. Because the extreme competition which is coming along with the present world order, the extreme individualism which is coming along with the thing, are all creating, for example, just take two sisters, I am not exaggerating, whose pre-primary level children, one gets admission in an English medium school which is rated very high in our place, and one doesn't fail, and the sisters don't speak to each other afterwards. This may be a little crude, but still it's happening. The distancing is happening. It is not a harmonizing world in which we are living. It is a world which is keeping people apart. And I end with one question, because I told you I've been writing on women, but I was writing a lot of enthusiasm and hope and whatnot. Today also all my hopes are not gone away, but my latest experience in Trivandrum, on March 8th, I went to talk to a group of women in the Kerala University. In fact, they had asked me much earlier, so I went to talk to them on March 8th. It is the Kerala University Women's Forum, which comprises of women teachers and technical staff. But the meeting, lots of students also had come. The topic they had chosen was women's studies, reflections and future or something like that. And the hall might have been as big as this. To begin with, it was not full, but I think by the lunchtime it was full because they knew that was being served. I said in the beginning I talk in Malayalam, though the language of university is English. And when I started, I said all this time I sat here looking at you. I felt so sad that though this day is quite bright and sunny outside and we have come to celebrate this day, all of you looked so pitifully, and I use the word dukkhidarum, it means so sad and weakened, and they didn't have any joy. In fact, one of the things that made me very jubilant in this seminar was that people are with so much of life and commitment and earnestness and everything, which their bodies was just the opposite. But that made them laugh, and some young girls came to me afterwards and took my address and picture. But within a few days after that thing, see, in Trivandrum there is in Kerala you will find lots and lots of goddess temples. So there was a temple which was very tiny. In fact, though I grew up very near Trivandrum, I had never heard about it. But this temple is dedicated to this goddess, who is believed to give all that you wish for. And so many people come there, and it is a Dravidian temple because the offerings are in the very typical Dravidian. It is not at all anything from the Aryan, North Indian, high caste or anything. And moreover, everybody can. You can also come and do this offering. But the number of women attracted to this temple every year is growing and growing. You cannot imagine how it is growing. In fact, one woman, Diana from America, has been coming for this particular thing for several years. She brings more and more Americans, and I heard she has even done a PhD on it. But this year she brought 10 people. But I am still now curious to know how this temple and this can attract so many people. In fact, this year the women took over the railway station and the bus stand and everywhere because their number is increasing. And but then you see when the women's march was so okay, what is the ritual for it? This happens within a few days. How does it happen? How do we explain for this? To one thing I may tell myself is that all that I said before is not. They may have more of gadgets, more money to buy better sarees. Definitely, the per capita expenditure wherever has gone up 1,000 folds in the course of the 3-4 decades. But I think their mental peace has been destroyed. Because when you want more, when you are more greedy, there is no end to that. But this is a very simplistic explanation. But I want at least some of you to think about this. How did it happen? And have we any way to understand it? Because I feel ultimately what we have to understand is how a society evolves. See, it is very easy to study something which I think this has been said many times here after it happens. But can we? I am sure we cannot come up with a blueprint, all correct, no foods, no nothing. Just like building a house. It is impossible. But still, what would be a harmonious society? Is it possible? The present world order tells us it is possible only in one way, the globalization, no alternative way. But with alternatives, with harmony, with all the things we attribute to socialism, a word used here in many times, is it possible or only the survival of the fittest? This is what I would like all of you to think. Thank you very much.